Michelle Yeoh makes history as the first Asian woman to win the Academy Award for Best Actress for her role in Everything Everywhere All at Once. The unconventional sci-fi film dominated the Oscar night.
Brendan Fraser wins his first Oscar and made the crowd cry after his ultimate comeback to Hollywood. More details on this later in the news. Good evening. I am Ricky Mathay.
And I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines.
Constitutional amendments still hang in the Senate. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. leads the cybersecurity pact signing. Mixed movements in fuel prices on Tuesday. North Korea fires submarine missiles ahead of U.S. and South Korea military drills. And Harry Styles is already in Manila for concert at the Philippine Arena.
Efforts to amend the 1987 Constitution do not have enough support in the Senate, but proponents vow to continue consultations and discussions on the matter. Mian Corvera reports.
The Senate leadership admits that the chamber's hearing on the issue of charter change is just a waste of time and effort. Senate President Juan Miguel Zubiri says it's impossible to get 3/4 votes or 18 senators for the passage of the proposal. He also adds that it's hard to pass the proposal without the support of Malacanang since the funding for constitutional amendments would come from them. Senator J.V. Ercito says amending the Constitution is not a priority. In a discussion with President Ferdinand Marcos, Ercito says the President is not interested to any amendments to the fundamental law. The Senator adds that only 4 to 5 of his colleagues are open to Chacha. Ejercito says he is willing to support the Chacha if it will focus only on economic provisions. The lawmaker admits that it's high time to review these provisions since they are not updated with the current economic situation.
Those economic provisions, I agree. We might need to amend already the Constitution, which is 1987, 36 years old. We have to adapt to the changing times. The country has to be competitive, lalo na sa ating ASEAN neighbors. But we have to make sure, and I agree with Senate President Zubiri, na dapat muna masigurado natin that talagang kung sakali constitutional assembly or CONCON. So yan ang mga pag-iisip dapat pa natin pag-usapan, no? Because diyan tayo magkakaroon ng siguro diyan magkakaroon ng deadlock whether we vote as one, both houses. Honestly, we have not received any signal yet from the President himself. The Senate has been busy with other equally important issues.
However, Senator Robin Padilla, chairman of the Senate Committee on Constitutional Amendments and Revision of Codes, says his committee will continue with its public hearings. Padilla says there are no instructions from Zubiri to terminate the panel's discussion on Chacha. He adds that he will not give up until his colleagues make their final decision in case the bill will not off for debate at the plenary.
Buksan po ang ating ekonomiya sa mga dayuhan na investor. That's the only way. Tingnan niyo, ma'am. Napakawalang logic. Padala tayo ng mga OFW sa abroad para magtrabaho doon. Bakit hindi natin dalhin dito yung mga negosyo na yun? Parang hindi na sila umalis. Dito na lang sila.
Padilla notes that only 7 provisions of the charter would be amended focusing on the economic provisions.
Bilang Pangulo naman ng komite, chairman ng komite ng amenda at ng revision ng saligang batas, kailangan makibagay ako sa mga kasama ko. Hindi ako po pwedeng gumawa ng isang bagay na alam ko naman na matatalo. Kasi pagka kon-kon, ipinilit ko yung kon-kon, walang pupuntahan yan, boss. Walang pupuntahan yan. Kasi sa palagay ko naman, pag pinag-usapan natin kasi ngayon, na baguhin natin ang political structure ng Pilipinas, baka walang senador.
Padilla says he has no plans to seek an audience with President Marcos for his support to push through with Chacha.
Sorry, hindi ko magagawa. Hindi ko talaga magagawa. Parang sinabi ko na ang Senado nasa ilalim ng executive. Parang nawala naman ng yabang ko nun.
Padilla's committee is eyeing the last week of July to come up with committee report to endorse in the plenary. Mayan Corvera for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. witnessed the signing ceremony between the National Intelligence Coordinating Agency, or NICA, and the National Grid Corporation of the Philippines, or NGCP, in Malacanang. To tell us more about the agreement, here's Kim Liana.
The National Intelligence Coordinating Agency, or NICA, and the National Grid Corporation of the Philippines, or NGCP, signed the Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, to protect the country's power assets against cyber attacks. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. witnessed the signing ceremony held in Malacanang this morning. The agreement includes protection on the country's cybersecurity and cyberspace, and NGCP's cooperation in NICA's mandate for national security and progress in the country's economy. NGCP is a privately owned corporation which ensures that the country's transmission assets are in good condition to deliver safe, quality, and dependable electricity. In his message, President Marcos says the agreement between NICA and NGCP will ensure security not only in our territory, but also in data and information that can be used against the country.
What we have witnessed today is a very important event in the continuing effort of our country to protect itself against any attacks from in cyberspace.
The President adds that the agreement will address concerns involving any foreign entities in the power transmission of the Philippines, which also poses a threat to the country's security.
So I thank the NGCP for taking the initiative here, for allowing. There have been fears that the involvement of any foreign entity in our power transmission system would present a security threat to the Philippines. Well, this is a very good step towards answering that challenge. It is but one step, because we are continuing to do this not only with NGCP, but we are developing our cyber systems so that we are secure.
Kim Liana for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Commission on Elections, or COMELEC, is considering the ramifications of an advanced release of honoraria for teachers who will serve as election officers for the Barangay and Sangguniang Kabataan elections, or BSKE, in October. COMELEC says an advanced release may be flagged by the Commission and Auditor COA. Vin Pasco for the story.
The Commission on Elections, or COMELEC, is studying whether they could release early the honoraria of teachers serving as election officers in the upcoming Barangay and Sangguniang Kabataan elections, or BSKE, in October. The COMELEC's statement is in response to the appeal made by Vice President and Education Secretary Sara Duterte. COMELEC spokesperson Attorney Rex Laujanco says they will coordinate with the Commission in Audit, or COA, and the Department of Budget and Management, or DBM, the Vice President's appeal. The poll body is concerned that the COA may flag them because of the prohibition on advance payment.
Po dito kami nakikipag-ugnayan po sa Department of Budget and Management, pati na rin po sa Commission on Audit, na tinitingnan po namin ang legalidad kung pwede talagang maaga pong ibigay. Tandaan po natin kasi ang general principle po sa fiscal management ng ating pamahalaan, ang bayad po, ang honoraria, ang sahod ay binibigay pagkatapos po mai-render ang serbisyo. Wala po kasi tayong advance payment pagdating po sa pamahalaan, be it goods or services po. Mahigpit po ang pagbabawal dyan.
Laujanco added that COMELEC also avoids releasing honoraria in advance.
Bawa, hindi po makapagserbisyo, makapaglingkod yung electoral board one way or another. Hindi na po namin mababawi at naaayon po sa ating accounting at auditing rules, kami po ang mananagot at magbabalik sa bayan yan kapag hindi po naserbisyohan ng karampatan yung naibigay na sahod. So ito po ay mga tinatalakay namin kaugnay ng COA at DBM. Nagkaroon na po kami ng experience dyan way back 2004 po, na nagpauna kami nagbigay ng kanilang honoraria.
Meanwhile, the poll body says President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is supportive of using new technology in the 2025 elections that were earlier discussed in the first National Election Summit headed by the COMELEC. Vin Pascua reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Negros Oriental Congressman Arnulfo Teves has not returned from abroad because of concerns about his security. Teves' travel authorization for his personal trip to the United States expired last March 9 based on documents released by the House of Representatives. Celine Dorado has the details.
Concerns for his security is preventing Negros Oriental Congressman Arnulfo Teves from returning to the country. Teves' lawyer, Attorney Toby Diokno, confirms the congressman's fear and wanted to inform House Speaker Martin Romualdez about this concern. Romualdez denied Teves' request to extend his travel authorization, which, according to the House Sergeant-at-Arms office, expired last March 9. The House of Representatives allowed Teves' personal trip to the United States from February 28 to March 9, 2023, but since then, the lawmaker has not returned to the country. Attorney Diokno says government investigators should look into all angles in the murder case of Negros Oriental Governor Roel Degamo.
Pwede rin nilang dapat tingnan. I mean, if they want to be fair in their investigation, all angles should be considered. So, wag nilang kasi parang lumalabas, ito yung political enemy, inaano nila na political kagad, no? So, and syempre, mas maganda nga naman talagang pakinggan at kakagatin, very sensationalized kung political ang angle na tinitingnan. Pero, gaya na sabi ko, hindi ko rin alam kasi social media accounts din to eh. Pero, if you're an investigator, investigating a particular crime or an offense, ang dapat mong gawin, all angles should be considered. Hindi yung naka-zona ka na lang sa isang bagay eh. No? Naka-zona ka na lang isang bagay. Dapat yan, lahat ng anggulo titingnan mo, other possible angles.
Diokno also says they are prepared to face the allegations against Congressman Teves once official charges are filed before the court. Celine Dorado for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
House Speaker Martin Romualdez calls for a probe on the absence of police escorts when Negros Oriental Governor Roel Degamo was assassinated. Meanwhile, the Philippine National Police clarifies that only 4 police personnel were assigned as security detail to Governor Degamo. Paulo Ramos has the details.
The House of Representatives is set to probe the absence of some police escorts assigned to Negros Oriental Governor Roel Degamo on the day that he was attacked and killed by armed men. House Speaker Martin Romualdez calls on the House Committee on Public Order and Safety, headed by Santa Rosa City Congressman Dan Fernandez, to lead the investigation. In a statement, Romualdez says it is highly suspicious that 5 out of 6 police personnel detailed to secure Degamo were not on duty last March 4, the day Degamo was assassinated and killed with 8 others. The Speaker says Degamo reported to the Philippine National Police or PNP the threat he received, so it is surprising that only 1 of the 6 police escorts was on duty when the crime occurred. Romualdez explains that Congress will investigate not only to uncover the questionable action of the police escorts assigned to Degamo, but also to ensure that all government officials in danger are provided adequate security. The House leader notes the striking parallels between the killing of Governor Degamo and the 2019 assassination of Ako Bicol Party List Representative Rodel Batucabe, who was then running for mayor of Daraga Albay. Report says that despite threats to Batucabe's life, 2 of his 3 police escorts were pulled out days before he was fatally shot. Once the congressional inquiry proves that some PNP personnel were in cahoots with the perpetrators to remove the security protection of Governor Digamo, Romualdez says the chamber will recommend the filing of appropriate criminal charges against everyone involved. Meanwhile, the PNP clarifies that they have accounted for the police personnel assigned as security escorts to Governor Digamo. In an interview with Net25's Ano sa Palagay Nyo, PNP spokesperson Colonel Jean Fajardo says there were only 4 police escorts assigned to the governor. They were on duty in 2 shifts, 2 officers per shift. Aside from the police personnel, there were 6 other security escorts from the Philippine Army. Prior to Digamo's assassination, Fajardo says the other police officer who was absent informed his partner that he would be late as he was attending to a concern with his child.
Linawin po natin itong issue po na ito base po sa information na ipinrovide po sa atin ng PRO7SITG ay 4 po ang pulis na naka-detail po at security ng Governor Digamo at ito po ay pinili po niya mismo, 4 po yan. At maliban po sa 4 na pulis po ay may 6 pa po na sundalo na naka-detail din po at security kay Governor Digamo. Dito po sa set up po sa ating mga police detail ay bali shifting po sila. Dalawa-dalawa po ang nagjo-duty sa kanila at nagkataon po nung insidente according sa information provided to us ay may nakadalawa pong naka-duty sa kanya samantalang yung 2 po ay naka-off. Okay. Subalit itong isang naka-duty supposedly ay nagpaalam po early on na siya po ay malilate dahil may inaasikaso lamang po sa kanilang bahay.
The PNP has vowed to focus on this case up to the very end and will prosecute regardless who are involved and whatever position and status they hold in society. Paulo Ramos for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Chinese embassy in Manila issued a statement on Sunday opposing the establishments of additional facilities and access for American troops in Philippine military bases. Let's hear more from Randy Bernardino.
The Chinese embassy in Manila warned the Philippines against establishing additional facilities within its military bases under the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, or EDCA. In a statement issued over the weekend, the Chinese embassy says the United States' effort to bundle the Philippines into the chariots of geopolitical strife will seriously harm the country's national interests and endanger regional peace and stability. Under EDCA, the Philippines will give the United States access to 4 more sites and allow its troops to rotate for extended periods and access local military sites. The embassy issued the statement in response to U.S. Ambassador to the Philippines Mary Kay Carlson's statement last Friday that the new EDCA sites will strengthen local authorities to defend themselves and strengthen the economy. Maritime tensions remain as Beijing claims the entire South China Sea. Furthermore, tensions are high between China and Taiwan because of Beijing's plan to reclaim Taipei as a part of its province. The embassy also accuses the United States of upgrading its military cooperation with the Philippines to secure its homogeny and geopolitical interests and Cold War mentality. Meanwhile, the Chinese embassy says there is no problem with the freedom of navigation in the disputed territories as tensions remain in the West Philippine Sea. The embassy also accuses the U.S. of stirring up trouble in the South China Sea and ganging up with its allies from other parts of the world to flex muscle in the area. The embassy adds that by doing these, the U.S. has not only heightened tension, driven a wedge between China and the Philippines, but also has disturbed and upset the joint effort of countries in the region to safeguard peace and stability in the South China Sea. The Marcos administration had announced the possibility of a multilateral joint patrols in the West Philippine Sea to include not only the United States, but also Japan and Australia. Korea. The Department of Foreign Affairs says it is drafting the guidelines for the joint patrols operations in the region under the framework of the Mutual Defense Agreement. Randy Bernardino for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Japan has donated gear and equipment to the Philippines to help in the ongoing oil spill cleanup in Oriental Mindoro. According to the Japan International Cooperation Agency, or JICA, the support items include oil blotters, heavy oil absorption masks, working gloves, rubber boots, and protective workwear. Mindoro's Philippine Coast Guard District received the items. JICA said the donated equipment is a strong addition to the 8-man Japan disaster relief team that arrived in the Philippines last Friday.
Oil companies announce another round of fuel price adjustments set for Tuesday, March 14. Pilipinas Shell and Sea Oil Philippines say prices of gasoline will also be up by 1 peso per liter. Meanwhile, diesel will also have a 10 centavo per liter price rollback and a reduction of 60 centavos per liter of kerosene. Price adjustments will be effective around 6 o'clock in the morning. Clean fuel, on the other hand, will impose a mixed price adjustment around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Coming up, North Korea test fires 2 strategic cruise missiles. About 30 migrants are missing after both capsizes off the Libyan shore. And at least 6 people are dead as Cyclone Yaku batters northern Peru. Matanang Agila International will be back after a short break.
This portion is brought to you by Final Match Security and Investigation Agency.
Tama na, may nanalo na. Uwi na. Cajun Seafood!
This portion is brought to you by 318 Automart, Arlex Trading and Construction Supplies.
Welcome back to Matanang Agila International. Pyongyang state media reports its military test-fired 2 strategic cruise missiles from a submarine. The missiles were launched from a naval vessel stationed on the east coast of Sinpo. The firing happened hours before the joint exercise of the U.S. and South Korea, dubbed as Freedom Shield. North Korea perceives the joint exercise as a declaration of war. The Freedom Shield exercise kicked off today and lasts for the next 10 days. It focuses on the changing security environment due to North Korea's increased aggression on nuclear threats.
China's leader Xi Jinping on Monday vowed to bolster national security and build the military into a Great Wall of Steel in his first speech of his unprecedented third term as president.
实现祖国完全统一，是全体中华儿女的共同愿望，是民族复兴的其中之一。 要贯彻新时代党 解决台湾问题的总体方略，坚持一个中国原则和九二共识，积极促进两岸关系和平发展，坚决反对外部势力干涉和台独分裂活动，坚定不移推进祖国统一进程。
Speaking at the closing of the annual meeting of China's Congress, Xi underscored the need to coordinate development and security. He asserted that security is the foundation of development and stability is the prerequisite for prosperity. He also urged the need to improve the social governance system and put emphasis on national rejuvenation. Political analysts say Xi's speech on strengthening security and military comes as tensions soar between China and the United States. In recent weeks, the countries exchanged tirades over trade, technology, Taiwan geopolitics, and the Philippines' maritime issues with Beijing. Xi was unanimously endorsed by the NPC as China's president for another 5 years, making him the longest-serving head of state of Communist China since its founding in 1949.
Chinese Premier Li Qiang notes that a 5% raise in economic growth this year is not an easy task. With its rubber stamp parliament, Beijing wrapped over a week of meetings at the National People's Congress. The premier warns that there will be many new challenges for growth. Data shows China's gross domestic product, or GDP, was dragged under the impact of strict COVID policies. In 2022, China posted its 3% growth, missing its 5.5% goal. Meanwhile, the premier urges the U.S. to cooperate with China as there is much to achieve. The U.S. imposed technology sanctions on China last year.
Russia claims the latest Ukrainian attack has killed 1 civilian and wounded 2 more residents in Volnovakha, Donetsk Republic. Our RT News correspondent Roman Kosarev files this report.
1 civilian was killed and 2 more were wounded as a result of a Ukrainian artillery attack in the city of Volnovakha. Now, according to officials, Ukraine launched 6 rockets from multiple launch rocket system HIMARS made in the United States. Now, 4 of those were intercepted and 2 landed right here at this bus terminal.
Parts supposedly from the foreign weapon systems of the HIMARS multiple launch rocket system were found at the scene.
As a result, 1 person was killed. Sergei is laying right here. He was 63 years old and he came to work at 5 o'clock in the morning when this attack took place. Now, the other 2 people who were wounded are now being treated at a hospital, and doctors are trying to do everything they can in order to save their lives.
I heard a pop. The explosion was so strong that I was thrown out of the gate. Thanks to the security guard, I was not on the bus at the time of the explosion. You can see for yourself what's left of this bus. I would have been dead then. When I came to my senses, I pulled out 1 person. His leg was badly damaged by the explosion. He was concussed. He didn't move. The ambulance took him right away. That's a civilian object. There have never been military facilities here. Why shoot here, targeting living people? It's just an atrocity.
Local bus routes have now been suspended as there are simply absolutely no buses to use for the people here. Some of the employees at this bus terminals are leaving their cars here overnight. You can see that they're completely destroyed at the moment. It's yet unclear when bus services in this area will resume. But as we can hear right now, shelling of this residential area continues at this point. And as the day progresses, we might hear about more victims. Roman Kosarev, RT, Donetsk Republic.
Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev has proposed renaming Ukraine. Medvedev, now the deputy chairperson of the Russian Security Council, says Ukraine should be called Bandera Reich, a reference to the notorious Nazi collaborator Stephen Bandera. Medvedev made a suggestion after Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky told his government to propose a new name for Russia. Zelensky instructed authorities to thoroughly study the proposal to officially rename Russia to Moscovia. The name Moscovia dates to the Grand Duchy of Moscow and was historically used by some authors to describe the Russian state.
8 people are dead after 2 suspected migrant smuggling boats capsized off the southern coast of California Saturday night. San Diego Chief Lifeguard James Gartland says a woman called 911 to report the boats had overturned. She told authorities one vessel had 15 people on board and hers had 8. Rescuers did not find any survivors. They may have left the beach before first responders arrived. Gartland says it's unclear what caused the accident, but describes the area as hazardous.
We arrived on scene even in the daytime. It has a series of sandbars and inshore rip currents. So you could think that you could land in some sand or get to waist-high, knee-high water and think that you're safe and be able to exit the water, but there's long inshore holes. So if you step into those holes, those rip currents will pull you along the shore and then back out to sea.
He says this is one of the worst human smuggling tragedies in the history of California.
The Italian Coast Guard reports a boat carrying 47 migrants capsized off Libya's coast. 17 people were saved, while about 30 are still missing. Sources say the migrants' boat capsized while a cargo ship tried to rescue them. A migrant hotline reports some people had drowned. The hotline asks they notified authorities about the boat rescue. However, the Coast Guard says Libyan authorities report there were no available boats and requested assistance from Rome. They add that Roman authorities sent 3 nearby merchant ships for the rescue. But the merchant vessels report that they had a hard time performing the operation due to bad weather.
6 people have died after Cyclone Yaku battered a large swath of northern Peru. The storm dumped heavy rain on the region, causing widespread flooding. The Peruvian government has declared a state of emergency in 7 regions. That declaration could include a wider area if things worsen. Police and the military used helicopters to evacuate people and bring humanitarian aid to the hardest-hit areas. On Saturday, President Dina Boluarte had a first-hand look at the devastation during a flyover. Farm fields are underwater, damaging crops. Many roads have been washed out. The calamity comes as Peru struggles with unrest caused by political instability. Violent demonstrations have been ongoing since the ouster of former President Pedro Castillo in December.
Cyclone Freddy has hit the African nation of Mozambique on the weekend for a second time in 2 weeks. Freddy's fury left at least 1 person dead and displaced scores of others. Freddy brought heavy rain and strong winds. Substantial flooding has been reported. In some places, people waded through knee-deep water that flowed into their houses. The storm is expected to drop more than 400 millimeters of rain in the next few days. That's more than double the usual monthly rainfall. It is on track to become the longest-lasting cyclone on record. Since Freddy formed in the first week of February off northwestern Australia, it has swept across the Indian Ocean before battering eastern Africa. Freddy has killed at least 27 people, 10 of them in Mozambique.
10 people are dead and another 5 wounded in an attack at a bar in the central Mexican state of Guanajuato. Authorities say a group of armed men burst into the bar and began firing at customers and employees. The victims include 7 men and 3 women. Guanajuato is a prosperous industrial region. It is also home to some of Mexico's most popular tourist destinations. It has become the country's bloodiest state. 2 cartels are fighting deadly turf wars in the state. Criminal organizations are known to conduct drug trafficking and fuel thefts. Up next, France's Senate passes controversial pensions reform. Fresh protests in Greece over country's deadliest rail accident. And Israeli army kills 3 Palestinian gunmen. Mata ng Agila International will be back with more global news. Please stay tuned.
This portion is brought to you by Robic Builders, Quezon City Motor Vehicle Inspection Center.
Together, Sunday 25.
BBC's boss vows not to quit amid the chaos surrounding Gary Lineker's controversial removal as Match of the Day host. Our UK correspondent Love and Season tells us more.
Britain's finance minister on Sunday said people's confidence in the BBC needed to be restored as the broadcaster's boss vowed not to quit amid the chaos surrounding Gary Lineker's removal as Match of the Day host. Lineker was forced to step back from his duties presenting the flagship Premier League highlight show after accusing the UK government of using Nazi-era rhetoric in announcing its policy to tackle illegal immigration. The BBC said on Friday that Lineker, England's fourth highest goal scorer of all time, had breached guidelines on impartiality, and the corporation would seek an agreed and clear position on his use of social media before an on-screen return. Finance Minister Jeremy Hunt told Sky News on Sunday that he profoundly disagreed with Lineker's remarks, but that the decision was one for the BBC and its Director General, Tim Davie. Lineker's critics claim the public-funded broadcaster has allowed him to use the platform afforded him as the face of its much-loved football show to influence the contentious political issues. But his backers accuse the broadcaster of taking their cues from the conservative politicians, pointing out that the current BBC chairman Richard Sharp facilitated a loan guarantee for former Prime Minister Boris Johnson while applying for the job. Love and Season for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has upgraded the electricity network for his new private swimming pool. Engineers had to install a substantial amount of equipment and a new connection to the national grid that runs across open fields. This followed Sunak's construction of a new heated swimming pool, a gym and tennis court in the grounds of the manor house he occupies. It is estimated to cost tens of thousands of pounds, which the Prime Minister will personally pick up for the upgrade. Sunak's new pool was built on greenfield agricultural land that until recently was used for grazing animals. A spokesperson for the Prime Minister declined to comment on the construction work.
President Joe Biden's plan to forgive student loans could wipe out up to $20,000 in federal student loans for up to 40 million borrowers in the United States. With several courts still opposed to the plan, our teams in North America asked those in college this question: with taxpayers having to shoulder the cost, should students' loans be forgiven? Chantel Santos reports.
Student loans are one of the easiest loans to obtain. 3 buttons, you're offered the loans, accept it, then maybe even the next week it's in your bank account.
Education, they say, is priceless. But no matter how priceless it may be, college education these days does come with a hefty price tag. Students under financial challenges are forced to take on huge amounts of student loans in order to get a college degree, only to be burdened with paying them back with interest after graduating. In the US, it is estimated that canceling some student debt would cost American taxpayers about $400 billion. Should student loans then be forgiven? We interviewed some students regarding this matter. Let's hear what they have to say.
I do believe that student loans should be forgiven because I believe everybody has to have or deserves a right to an education, and one's financial status shouldn't determine or have a huge impact on whether a student feels like they can pursue a degree.
I think that they should be forgiven. Some people have, better foundations. Some people are more set on their finances. But then there are some that they just can't get any of that. The financial system would have provided more context and, just more training, more information on this for, high schoolers.
Students, when they graduate, they still have like a lot of debt to pay up, right? They eventually have to pay it off. And depending on their job that they want to pursue, they could be in debt for probably more than their whole education, right? 12 years, 15 years, maybe until like their 50s.
It's not really fair. I don't think it's right that students have to think about how much debt am I going to be in.
They just assume that, 20,000 is going to be 20,000. No, 20,000 in debt can easily become 40, 60 if you're not careful about what you're doing.
Indeed, student loans appear to be a make and break situation for most college students. Student loans can make one stream of having a college degree a reality, but they can also break their lives after graduation, as they figure out how to pay their student loans back in the midst of an economy in crisis. Reporting from Toronto, Canada, Chantal Santos from Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
The Philippines does not have daylight saving time. However, many Filipinos have friends and loved ones living in America. There, a majority of the states have recently moved their clocks 1 hour forward. Some welcome the change and want it to be permanent. Sleep experts, however, are opposed to it. Anna Cui in Las Vegas tells us more.
Daylight saving time started Sunday for much of the U.S. As many were wondering, will it become permanent or will there be an end to daylight saving time anytime soon? The U.S. Senate passed the Sunshine Protection Act of 2021, March of last year, just days after the clocks were adjusted to spring forward. It would have abolished clock changes in favor of daylight saving time year-round, but it has not been signed into law, even with the 2022 version of the bill. If the current bill passes, however, there would be no fallback in November, as it would become effective on November 5, 2023. Clocks would stay on daylight saving time permanently. What does that mean exactly? Well, there will be no setting clocks back 1 hour or fallback come November. However, Arizona, Hawaii, and 5 U.S. territories that follow permanent standard time would be exempt from the law. Sleep experts say standard time is a better option than daylight saving time for our health, mood, and well-being. They oppose permanent daylight saving time because they say the shift in the timing of daylight exposure can affect the body's internal clock, which follows a 24-hour schedule known as a circadian rhythm. On the flip side, there are those who say daylight saving time, which started in 1918 in the U.S., was created primarily to reduce energy consumption, and they say it still does. According to Sleep Foundation, 19 states have passed legislation calling for permanent daylight saving time. Those include Utah, Colorado, Oregon, Florida, just to name a few. But that's only if the federal government allows them to do so. Nevada and its neighboring state of California do not have such a law at this time. In Las Vegas, Anna Cui reporting from Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
By a vote of 195 to 112, France's Senate approved a controversial reform to the country's pension system. Sources say a committee will now thresh out a final draft, which will then be submitted to both the Senate and National Assembly for a final vote. However, many sectors see the reform as unfair to people who started working young. The reform's headline measure is a hike in the minimum retirement age to 64 from 62. The reforms would also increase the number of years people have to make contributions in order to receive a full pension. But Prime Minister Elizabeth Borne says if the government fails to meet the necessary majority, she would deploy Article 49, subsection 3. This constitutional tool, known as commitment of responsibility, allows the government to pass a bill without a vote.
D'abord, nous ne renoncerons pas à notre réforme des retraites. Ensuite, nous enregistrons étape après étape tous les signes qui nous permettent de considérer que nous allons pouvoir faire adopter notre réforme des retraites. Et donc nous continuons sur la voie que nous avons engagée, celle de la concertation, des négociations avec les forces politiques. Et on y arrivera.
Thousands of demonstrators staged fresh protests in Greece on Sunday as anger grows over the country's deadliest rail crash. 57 people died when a passenger train collided head-on with a freight train on February the 28th. In Athens, more than 8,000 demonstrators gathered outside of Parliament. In Thessaloniki, another 5,000 took to the streets. Protesters waved banners that said, "We won't forget, we won't forgive." 4 railway officials have been charged. But public anger is focusing on long-running mismanagement of the rail network. Since the accident, Greece has been rocked by a series of sometimes violent mass protests. More demonstrations are expected later this week. Public and private sector workers plan to stage a walkout on Thursday. Many protesters have called for the resignation of Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis, who is fighting to be re-elected within months.
The Israeli military says it shot and killed 3 Palestinian gunmen Sunday after they opened fire on troops in the occupied West Bank. The shooting took place at an army position west of Nablus. The army says a 4th gunman surrendered to authorities. The Palestinian Health Ministry says Israel informed it of the deaths but provided no other details. The incident took place a short distance from an Israeli settlement. A member of the settler council praised the army for taking out what he called the murderous terrorist squad operating in the area. Violence in the West Bank has worsened since Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu returned to office in December. The government has vowed to continue the expansion of West Bank settlements. Coming up, Carlos Yulo wins 3 gold medals in Baku World Cup Series. 95th Academy Awards makes history with Asian winners. And Harry Styles arrives for Philippine Arena concert. Catch more news when Mata ng Agila International returns. U.S. authorities unveiled sweeping measures to ease fears over the health of the banking system following the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank, or SVB. Federal authorities stepped in to ensure depositors still had an access to their funds at SVB. Regulators also promised to help in meeting customers' needs after markets were rattled by the bank's sudden collapse. Amid fears over the wider sector, President Joe Biden vowed to hold fully accountable the people responsible for the mess. He also reassured Americans their deposits are safe. Biden is expected to deliver remarks this Monday on maintaining a resilient banking system. Silicon Valley Bank is a key lender to startups across the United States since the 1980s. It collapsed after a sudden run on deposits, which prompted regulators to seize control Friday.
In Britain, banking giant HSBC bought Silicon Valley Bank's UK division for just £1 million, or $1.2 million. The sale, overseen by the Bank of England and Treasury, comes after SVB's collapse, which sparked panic in Britain. Meanwhile, Finance Minister Jeremy Hunt confirms that no government cash was involved. He says all customer deposits have been safeguarded. SVB halted its operation on Friday when the bank's share plummeted to 60% on Thursday. HSBC said that UK's SVB had loans of about £5.5 billion and around £6.7 billion in deposits.
Elon Musk says he is open to the idea of buying Silicon Valley Bank, or SVB. This after SVB Financial Group was shut down by U.S. regulators for its failing or falling stock price. A search for another bank to merge with SVB is underway, as well as buyers for SVB's other assets. In response to Razer CEO Min Liang-tan's suggestion that Twitter should buy SVB, Musk tweeted he's open to the idea without giving any context. SVB was the 16th biggest lender in the U.S. at the end of last year, with about $209 billion in assets. The shutting down of the bank was the largest since Washington Mutual went bust in 2008.
Filipino gymnast Carlos Yulo continues his winning streak after bagging 3 gold medals in the FIG Artistic Gymnastics World Cup Series in Baku, Azerbaijan. Yulo won the first gold medal with his winning performance in parallel bars final last Saturday, where he defeated Ilya Kovtun of Ukraine. The Filipino gymnast then secured on Sunday 2 more golds after reigning in a 2-vault 8-man finale and defeated Great Britain's Harry Hepworth. Over a week ago, Yulo also completed his medal collection in the Doha series of the World Cup. During the Doha series, Yulo bagged an award trifecta after winning a bronze medal for men's vault final, a silver in the parallel bar stint, and a gold for men's floor exercise apparatus final. Paul Lee led Team Japheth to victory in the 2023 PBA All-Star Game. It was a competitive and entertaining PBA All-Star Game that included a win for Team Japheth over Team Scotty, 140-136 at the City of Pasay Arena in Iloilo. Paul Lee led Team Japheth with 32, including 7 out of 13 shooting from 4-point range. Because of Lee's performance, he was named the All-Star MVP and earned a 30,000 peso prize. Coached by Barangay Ginebra's Tim Cone, Team Japheth was rewarded with 150,000 pesos, while Team Scotty won a 75,000 peso prize. Kevin Alas and CJ Perez led Team Scotty with 35 and 26 points, respectively.
The Hollywood Dolby Theater was flooded with applause as winners from the 95th Academy Awards received their golden statuettes. The awards kicked off Sunday evening with the industry's brightest stars donning spectacular outfits. This year's Oscars had 24 categories filled with a wide caliber of motion pictures and talented actors. The film Everything, Everywhere, All at Once took home 7 awards, including Best Picture, original screenplay, lead actress, supporting actor, and editing. The film's Michelle Yeoh was dubbed as the first Asian woman to receive the Oscar for Best Actress in her role as Evelyn Wang. Meanwhile, Brendan Fraser took home Best Actor for his role as an English teacher, Charlie, in the movie Whale. German World War I film All Quiet on the Western Front also did well, receiving 4 Academy Awards.
British singer Harry Styles has arrived in the country for his concert at the Philippine Arena tomorrow, March 14. Styles was seen at a mall yesterday. He will perform for his Love on Tour 2023, where he just finished a concert in Thailand last Saturday. Because of the multitude of fans who want to watch Harry, standing tickets have been added for the concert at the Philippine Arena. Fans are expecting to hear songs from his recent albums, Fine Line and Harry's House.
The Los Angeles Art Show features a diverse collection of exhibits from artists from all around the world. It dazzles and inspires crowds eager to satisfy their artistic palette. In Los Angeles, California, Eva and Alan have this report.
From modern to contemporary, digital to interactive, the LA Art Show returns for its 28th run.
This event once again transforms the Los Angeles Convention Center into a mega art gallery.
So today you're actually looking at 2 different styles that I actually work with. One being my Out of the Darkness, which is the fingerprints and the hands that you see where it's engraven. That's come from Nelson Mandela, South Africa, as inspiration. And then the other side is where the character is meant to be you as an individual. And so you're able to express your feelings onto the actual paintings. And with most of my work, I also work in gold and diamonds. So what you're seeing here is 23 karat gold leaf in multiple layers.
I was always interested in sort of a color-filled, flat painting. I found this material, plexiglass. It can show the depth, not like a conventional canvas painting. And then the colors that I work, it really matches and work with the material itself. I mix colors with this special ink that I mix with, and then each color is created in one at a time.
This is a rain, but the rain of letters. So the idea is to change the way the letters are perceived and to give color, individuality, to make them free. And so they can represent a lot of our thought, a lot of our storytelling. So you are invited to come inside and enjoy what is around you. In art, in contemporary art, what we care is give me something new and a new way to see around me. They say the sunrise and sunset are the same thing. The only thing that changes is our point of view. So I would like you to change your point of view.
Saying that one could get lost in art isn't some flight of fancy.
Especially when that art is immersive, both figuratively and literally.
Reporting from Los Angeles, California, Eva and Alan for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
It's Monday, and to help you start the week, here's a quote from American author Helen Keller. The best and most beautiful things in the world cannot be seen or even touched. They must be felt with the heart. I believe her.
Wise words.
Exactly.
Right?
And for somebody who cannot see.
And I guess that's why she
bet,
really,
yeah.
She felt it, she lived it.
Exactly.
And not a bad idea for us to do so too.
Exactly. What a great inspiration on a Monday evening. Take you through the week.
Happy Monday, guys. And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Ricky Matay.
And I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.